You were told that putting others first is noble, that compromise makes you mature, that your worth is measured by how much you sacrifice. They called it kindness. They dressed it up in morality. They even made it spiritual, as if disappearing for others was a sign of evolution. But let's be precise. That belief that selflessness is strength has made you weak. Not wise, not loved, not respected. Just used. Here's the truth. No one ever respects a man who doesn't put himself first. They might praise you, they might smile, but deep down, they test you more. They push harder, because the man who bends is the man they believe can be broken. And that's what they've done to you, piece by piece, smile by smile, until you no longer exist outside their expectations. Look around. The quiet ones, the agreeable ones, the ones always helping, where do they end up? Underpaid, unseen, forgotten. Meanwhile, the cold operator who never apologizes, he rises. Because in this world, the one who dares to act in his own interest is not shamed. He is feared, not emotionally, not violently, strategically. You have been taught that being good leads to rewards, but in real life, being useful without boundaries leads to exploitation. Being predictable leads to betrayal. Being selfless leads to becoming a tool in someone else's war. This isn't philosophy. It's math, game theory, power dynamics, human nature. So now we begin. You must erase the belief that being loved is more important than being respected. Because Machiavelli was right. It is much safer to be feared than to be loved. If one must choose, fear doesn't mean aggression. It means clarity. It means consequences. It means you don't lower your voice to be accepted. You raise your value to be untouchable. To put yourself first is not selfish. It's strategic. Because the world doesn't reward good intentions. It rewards calculated control. And the man who places himself at the center doesn't wait for the throne to be given. He builds it quietly, while others kneel, hoping someone will notice them. So ask yourself, why are you always last in your own life? Because you believe the myth that people will give back what you give, that fairness exists without enforcement, that love will protect you. But here's what actually happens. You give your time and they demand more. You give your energy and they question your motives. You say yes too much and suddenly they expect it without thanks. Meanwhile, the one who says no with ease, he becomes the standard they chase. Not because he gives more, but because he gives less and makes it cost something. You think that by giving, you're creating bonds, but in reality, you're revealing your need. And neediness is blood in the water. So let's dissect it. Let's break the cycle. This is the death of the nice guy, the funeral of the agreeable fool. The moment where putting yourself first becomes not just a choice, but a weapon. Because the battlefield is real, and if you're not fighting for your name, your time, your vision, then someone else is using it for theirs. You think this is harsh? It's not. This is how power works. Power respects only one law: who dares to take the center. That is the law you've ignored. That's why you're replaceable, forgettable, a ghost in other people's stories. So, here is the beginning of everything. You must stop expecting others to make room for you. They won't. You must stop hoping people will value your sacrifice. They don't. Power does not come from being liked. It comes from being needed on your terms. When you begin putting yourself first, you stop bleeding for people who wouldn't scratch for you. You stop explaining your silence. You stop apologizing for wanting more, and you start watching as they adjust. Because they do adjust. They always do. Not for kindness, but for dominance. Now listen carefully. You are not here to be fair. You are not here to be equal. You are here to be feared just enough that no one forgets your value again. That begins with one brutal step. You take your time, your mind, your loyalty back. From today, not by force, not by announcement, by strategy. You don't explain your no. You simply say it. You don't offer more. You let the silence speak. You don't justify why you left. You just vanish from the places that didn't protect your presence. And what happens? Suddenly they call, they notice, they miss what they once ignored. But it's too late. You no longer trade your power for affection, because affection fades, but respect when built through strategy holds. So put yourself first, and let them wonder what changed. You changed, and now you don't serve. You command. Your attention is currency, and you've been giving it away like it's free. Every moment you spend explaining yourself, answering pointless texts, showing up for people who wouldn't bleed for you, that's a transaction. But you've never charged interest. You've treated yourself like a public service. You've been on call, emotionally available, soft-spoken, waiting for someone to finally see your worth. They won't, because what's always available is never valuable. Here's what you must internalize: your time, energy, and mind are commodities. And when you give without structure, without boundaries, without terms, you don't build loyalty. You build entitlement. Machiavelli understood this. He wrote, men are ungrateful, fickle, liars, and deceivers. Not because they're evil, because they're strategic. Give too much of yourself without conditions, and they stop seeing it as generosity. They see it as your role. Your silence becomes their comfort. Your effort becomes their right. Your presence becomes their possession. And you think they're changing. You think they've grown colder. But no, they're simply adapting to your lack of self-prioritization. This is not personal, it's behavioral economics. They've realized you'll stay. So why would they pay? In psychology, this is known as reward devaluation. The brain stops valuing something that's too easy, too frequent, too predictable. That includes you. So what happens when you stop replying instantly? What happens when you skip the party? What happens when you stop asking how they feel and start watching how they behave? They panic. They recalculate. They start chasing what once chased them. Not because you became cold, but because you became calculated. You adjusted the terms, and that, in the real world, is how power shifts. You think strategy is manipulation? No. It's survival in environments where your default instinct was self-erasure. Think of it like this. A lion does not roar to be liked. He roars to be remembered. And when the roar is absent, the silence is louder. So stop apologizing for the shift. They'll call you distant. They'll say you've changed. They'll accuse you of ego. They're right. You've changed the valuation model. You no longer offer full access without cost. You no longer serve to be seen. You no longer lower your standards just to feel loved. Because love is cheap when it costs you your identity. Let's talk about identity. Every man has two selves. The self he is in public: agreeable, compliant, digestible. And the self he buries: the calculating force who watches in silence. You've kept him buried. But now, he surfaces. This part of you isn't emotional. He doesn't seek approval. He's a strategist. He watches how people respond to your presence and your absence. He tracks energy leaks like a war general. He sees how people suddenly value you more when you stop being available. Because here's the secret: you teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate. Let that line sink in. Every yes that was meant to be a no taught them something. Every free favor you gave trained them. Every time you forgave without adjustment rewarded them. And now you reverse it. Not through confrontation, through silence with structure. Example. You don't tell them you're not available. You are not available. You don't argue why you need time alone. You take it without report. And slowly, they begin to ask, where did he go? Why isn't he replying? Why is he so calm, so indifferent? That's when power begins. Because your absence isn't just physical, it's psychological. You become a question in their mind, a disruption to their control loop. And questions unanswered create respect. The more mysterious your mind, the more dangerous your value, because no one wants to lose what they can't predict. And that's the goal: to shift from being the dependable backup to becoming the unpredictable variable. The man who doesn't over-explain, the man whose silence carries weight, the man whose time feels earned, not expected. Because Machiavelli was clear, the promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present. Adaptation is not betrayal. It's realignment. You're not obligated to be who you were just because they're comfortable with it. You can burn the old version, quietly, strategically, without a single warning. And the moment you do, they'll feel it. Because you were the foundation they mistook for furniture, they thought you'd always be there. They were wrong. Now, you're not reacting. You're calculating. You don't give away energy, you invest it. And your greatest investment is yourself. That is the Machiavellian shift. From giver to gatekeeper. From servant to sovereign. You don't tell them. You show them. Through distance, through scarcity, through absolute control of your time. And suddenly your presence has weight. You were conditioned to seek approval. Not just by your parents. Not just by teachers. By the entire structure of society. Be polite. Be helpful. Be nice. Smile when it hurts. Listen when no one listens to you. And above all, avoid conflict. But conflict is not chaos. Conflict is clarity. And men who avoid it lose everything. Because the man who cannot say this is enough is the man who will lose his mind in silence. Let's be exact. You learned to equate approval with safety. If they liked you, you were safe. If they smiled, you were good. If they clapped, you mattered. So now you bend. You hesitate. You overthink every move not for strategy, but for permission. That's not diplomacy. That's slavery of the self. And the worst part? They don't even notice your internal war because you've hidden it too well. You've become the mask they prefer, reliable, calm, easy. But here's what happens to men like that. They implode, not suddenly, but slowly. One fake laugh at a time. One avoided no at a time, until you don't recognize yourself in the mirror. Pleasing is not generosity. It's a form of fear. Fear of rejection, fear of being called difficult, fear of being left out. And here's the paradox. The more you please, the less they value you, because power doesn't reward softness, it rewards standards. You think your yes is a gift, but to them, it's a routine. You think your forgiveness is grace, but to them, it's a reset button. So let's change the frame. From now on, if it costs you peace, it's too expensive. If it costs your focus, it's disqualified. If it doesn't return energy, it's cut. Not emotionally, not angrily, systematically. Because this isn't about being cold. It's about becoming untouchable. People don't stop taking advantage of you when they see your pain. They stop when they feel your absence. Not for a day, not as punishment, but as your new default setting non-availability. Availability is how they access your energy, your time, your loyalty. Control that gate and you control the room. Let's clarify, you don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to explain boundaries. You need to enforce behavioral consequences. That means when someone crosses a line, you disappear. When someone disrespects your time, they lose access. When someone ignores your value, you remove it from their life. Without emotion, without warning, without the performance of closure. Because real closure is not a conversation. It's disconnection. Now here's the tactical core. You must learn to disappoint people. Let them feel uncomfortable. Let them call you arrogant. Let them withdraw their approval. That's how you know you're reclaiming power. You are not here to be digestible. You are not here to be understood. You are here to build an empire within yourself where your standards govern, not other people's comfort. This is what they'll never teach you. You don't have to be rude to be powerful. You just have to be unmoved. Unmoved when they try to guilt you. Unmoved when they try to bait you. Unmoved when they beg for the version of you that served their needs. That version is dead, and the new version, he smiles less, talks less, but observes everything. He doesn't rush to be liked. He studies reactions like a chessboard. He learns who deserves access and who just wants a refill of attention. Machiavelli wrote, "A wise man ought always to follow the paths beaten by great men, and to imitate those who have been supreme." And the great ones, they're not the loudest. They're the least available, the ones who say the least and move the most, strategically, in silence, with precision. You don't win by over-explaining. You win by removing yourself from every table where your presence is taken for granted. You think this is loneliness? It's not. It's sovereignty. And only from that space can you build power, power that doesn't beg, chase, or collapse. So, here's your next shift. You stop asking, will they like this version of me? And start asking, is this version of me built for domination? Because that's what this is. A war of influence, a war of energy, a war of psychological terrain. You either control the field or get trampled on it. So stop stepping lightly, stop bending backward, stop calling your silence kindness. It was just fear wearing a smile. From now on, you wear strategy like armor, and every move you make is weighted with intent. Because the man who knows how to disappoint others without flinching is the man they watch. In silence. They might not like you, but they'll never forget you. Power does not shout. It withdraws. And that's where you failed. You've been too quick to explain, too eager to forgive, too available to respond. You reply before they even deserve your attention. You show up before they feel your absence. You give the answer before they earn the question. That's not connection, that's submission. You don't see it, but your predictability is your vulnerability. Your instant replies signal desperation. Your constant presence signals low value. Your eagerness to fix things removes all tension, and without tension, there is no attraction, no curiosity, no respect. Understand this: power lives in the gap between stimulus and response. A king doesn't flinch. He waits. A predator doesn't chase noise. He waits. The man who can wait controls the battlefield. Because when you delay your reactions, people become obsessed with filling the silence. And that's when control shifts. Let's break it down. Withholding is a weapon. Withholding your reply, withholding your validation, withholding your energy. Not to manipulate, but to protect your throne. You don't give answers to people who ask wrong questions. You don't reward behavior that insults your standard. You don't comfort people who only seek your presence to soothe their guilt. You let them feel the consequence. Silence, distance, delay. They'll accuse you of being passive-aggressive. Let them. You're not avoiding conflict. You're staging a psychological vacuum, and in that vacuum, they must face their own behavior. That's what silence does. It reflects, it exposes, it forces people to self-correct if they're smart enough to keep their access to you. Machiavelli never said to scream. He said to control perception. And in this age, where everyone overshare, mystery is power. The less they know, the more they need. The less you speak, the more they lean in. The less you give, the more they offer. Because people do not chase abundance, they chase scarcity. So stop being emotionally generous. Start being structurally scarce. You want your presence to feel expensive, your mind to feel impenetrable, your time to feel earned. Not by being arrogant, but by being intentional. Here's the rule: you don't reach out first. You don't offer closure. You don't explain boundaries. You create uncertainty. And in that uncertainty, people project their own guilt. They begin to rewrite the narrative in your favor. They start wondering if they misread you, if they lost something they didn't realize was valuable. That's the leverage silence gives you, a mirror. You don't need to shout what you are. You let them wonder what they lost. Example. Let's say someone lies to you. You don't confront. You just reduce access. You don't warn them. You just become colder. No drama, no explanation, just distance. Suddenly, they panic. Not because you're gone, but because they can't calculate you anymore. That's when they become obsessed. That's when they apologize. That's when they chase. You don't even need to say a word, because your shift in availability speaks volumes. You're not being cruel. You're being consequential. Because here's the truth. People don't change when you beg. They change when they fear losing access. And the one who controls access controls perception, controls behavior, controls power. Let's talk work. At your job, stop saying yes to every request. Start creating invisible friction. Delay your replies. Give answers with sharp precision. Make them wait just enough to feel your value. Never instantly comply unless it was already part of your plan. This is not laziness, it's hierarchy management. People perform better when they don't feel superior to you. So never act like you need them, even when you do. Your strength lies in the illusion of abundance. That you could walk away at any time, not in anger, but in calculated indifference. That's the most unnerving kind of power. The one they can't read, the one they can't guilt, the one they can't predict. You become the anomaly, and anomalies get elevated, not ignored. So stop being emotionally on call. Stop trying to clear the air. Let the air stay thick, it reveals who can breathe around you. You are not here to be soothing. You are here to be disruptive. To their assumptions, to their routines, to their easy access. And if they ask, "What's wrong?" you say nothing. Because nothing is the answer that haunts them more than any explanation ever could. This is not revenge. This is recalibration. From now on, your silence will be your answer. Your delay will be your resistance. Your absence will be your punishment. And when you return, if you return, you will not be the same. You will be observed, respected, and maybe feared quietly, because no one forgets the man who once vanished and came back stronger, quieter, and more selective. You've tried everything: giving, pleasing, explaining, apologizing, fitting yourself into spaces that shrink your value. And where has that left you? Exhausted, resentful, invisible. Not because you weren't enough, but because you made yourself too available to be respected. You thought goodness would be rewarded. But in the real world, only leverage is. And leverage doesn't come from being nice. It comes from being needed, but uncontrolled. This is the final shift. You must now become what they can't touch, can't read, can't reduce. You become the man who acts from structure, not emotion, from clarity, not guilt, from presence, not noise. This isn't just about putting yourself first. It's about building a life that cannot be dictated by reaction, because everything they once used to control you, emotion, urgency, praise, withdrawal, none of it works anymore. You've made yourself sovereign. Sovereign men don't ask, "Will they like me?" They ask, "Will this serve my power structure?" And if the answer is no, they walk, without a scene, without a speech, without a scar. This is what makes them feared. Not cruelty, not volume, not threats, just a total refusal to be controlled. Machiavelli wrote, "The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him." So look around. Who still drains you? Who still expects you to be soft when you should be sharp? Who still treats your energy as if it's common? They don't belong near your command center. Cut quietly, replace surgically, rebuild in silence. From now on, you are not a participant. You are an observer. You study patterns. You detect motives. You measure energy exchanges like a machine. You walk into rooms knowing, "I don't need anyone here to like me. I only need them to understand that I'm not one of them." That's power. Not arrogance, not aloofness, but difference. You're not here to play their game. You're here to make them adjust to yours. And what is your game? Minimal speech, maximum clarity, no over-explaining, no second chances, everything earned, nothing assumed. Even your kindness is selective. Even your time is rationed. Even your energy is protected like state secrets. Because the truth is, most people are too careless with what you offer. Not out of malice, but because you offered it too easily. Now, you've changed the economy. Your attention costs more. Your presence is invitation only, and your validation rare. This is how you put yourself first. Not by becoming louder, but by becoming less accessible. Not by seeking love, but by becoming respected in silence. And when you are respected, you don't need to explain. You don't need to chase. You don't even need to react. Because now, you are not part of the storm. You are the weather system. You dictate tone. You set the pace. You signal the beginning and the end of interaction. This isn't about control. It's about command. And command begins inside. When you no longer ask, "What do they think of me?" and start declaring, This is what I am. Not through words, but through absolute behavioral consistency. And what will they say? They'll say, "You've changed, you've grown cold, you've become distant." Let them speak. Their discomfort is proof of your power, because only the man who once served can truly terrify when he stops. You are now untouchable, not because you fight, but because you no longer need to. You don't demand respect. You radiate it. You don't scream boundaries. You enforce them through absence. You don't argue. You just never return. This is the final lesson. You are not here to be understood. You are not here to be loved. You are here to be remembered by your silence, feared by your distance, and respected by your complete control of self. Put yourself first, not for revenge, not for applause, but because no one else ever will. And the man who understands that is no longer a servant of this world. He owns it.